Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the No Faces Comic Chat. I am your host, Bub of BUB'S Comics. And with me, as always, you can put them up, but you can't keep them down. DS Comics. Welcome, DS.
What is up? Good to be here. Missed the show last week, so this is very exciting.
Oh, well, you should set your notifications on and you won't miss the next episode.
Very good idea.
See what I did there? And with us, usually, as always, fresh from a new place, back from his old place. So good to see him around this place. We've got Metarog.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Great to be back on YouTube after like 2 weeks of, of shall we say, lack of internet or problematic internet, shall we say.
So glad to have you back. We certainly miss you. I don't know. Was it last week, DS? We did just a Cull the Collection video together instead.
Yeah, we didn't do the No Faces for the last 2 weeks, but last week you and I did the Cull the Collection later on that night, and that was sort of like a sad version of No Faces that didn't have Roger, but we still slugged through and had some fun. So it was all right.
I appreciate that, and I begrudgingly agree. In the chat so far, we got Unruly Simeon in them their house. We got Rob Boswell, who's got to quit working. This guy's working like an animal. He's not making any videos. It's ridiculous. We got to get him back on the scene. I mean, all those stickers and new evaders, and they're all going to waste. Las Cruces in the house, and hooray! Mr. Gretzky 9966 is in the house. Area 51 Mike, did you see the post he put on Instagram of his statues? Just the east wing of his statue room. It was fantastic. I mean, just to talk about a drool fest. Just great stuff. We got Mabuse Cat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you. And let's see. We got DS Comics. This guy's always hanging around. We got C. Woodard. Yes, that's the one. Oh, my. Hold on. Look at this, you guys. Holy cow. It is amazing. I highly recommend you go check that out. It's so good. That's crazy. We got C. Woods in the house. Rob Boswell's still here. Gray Man's here as well. Knights of Old. Uh-oh. He was another guy that helped us in what DS referred to as the subpar filler non-canonical episode last week. And you know what we say whenever Knights of Old shows up, it's like watching Bud him out, baby. That man's so smooth. He's just so smooth. All right, what are we doing here? Where are we at? I got lost. All right, we got Superhero Review. I think he was just live just a few minutes ago, so check that out. Catch that on the Dem Dare Rewind. We got Dem Agu Ramos with the eyes staring at a dog's behind. I'm a little concerned, Agu. I'm a little concerned. But other than that, we got Kachoo in the house. Gray Man is still here. I think we've got everybody all them there caught up. I think we got them all. All right. Thank you all for being here. You guys rock. Yes, I think it might be. I think it might be. Yeah. Unruly was asking DS, does he reckon 10K is too much to pay for a copy of Previews 95? But all I'll say to that is refer to DS's previous post where he apologized for a key comics collector, and I'm sure you'll be very confused.
I'll tell you, I wouldn't pay a penny more than $9,200 for that Previews 95.
Well, there you go.
No apologies to Key Collector or City Limits Comics. Who else? Probably Comic Tom. I think I threw him under the bus a little bit. And, there was one more, I think, what's the CBSI top 10? Yeah, I really do like the CBSI guys, though. And their top 10 is it's a little different than the others. So no apologies here.
No apologies. Even though just 3 days ago you went on a rant video for an hour and a half, almost defending him. It was close.
Well, I don't have anything to apologize to for Key Collector. The issue wasn't really about Key Collector, although I mentioned it sort of as a side thing of the main issue, which was slightly different, fueled in large part by a lot of what Key Collector and Comic Tom do, but it's not really their fault per se. But I don't trust Key Collector really all that much, as far as, he's put a lot of times he's putting stuff on there without any due diligence, and it's just pumping stuff up just to have something to pump up for the day. A lot of it's gratuitous, and a lot of it he hasn't done the legwork or the homework to find out what's behind it. Like, he'll grab a bait post from Instagram and put it on the app, and it catches a bunch of people, and it was meant to be a joke. So Comic Tom has his own sort of business going on. There's a lot of aspects to that. He's a little too high energy for me, but again, he's running a very successful business with Mill Geek Comics. Good for them. I don't have any problems with them. I'm not in the modern market and the spec game, but the Key Collector and Comic Tom, they fuel a lot of the excitement and the FOMO for this stuff. And there's a lot of aspects to it. We're not going to go way down this rabbit hole, but we're sort of partially in it at this point. But there's a lot of demand for that. There's a lot of people who love the excitement and the pace of the modern comics and the spec game and the flipping. And so those are Key Collector and Comic Tom. They have two very successful business models because there's demand out there. Without the demand, they wouldn't be able to do it. So kudos to them for building businesses for aspects that were needed, because people sign up and are crazy about that stuff.
Well, I'll dip my toe in the water just a little bit.
Go for it.
See if something bites me. Here's what I have. I have general and natural distrust, as you do, of certain patterns that I see. And one is anyone who works on the periphery of a hobby without actually engaging in the hobby and is trying to make a living at that, I question. So I have more respect for your average flipper who's buying and selling books, because at least they're buying and selling books. That's part of the hobby. If people didn't buy books and sell books, I wouldn't have any books. So they may be doing it on a different level than I appreciate, or there may be some, scruples involved, and people get all on their high horse about such things. But for the most part, it's buying and selling. But when people are trading in information in order to make money off a hobby, that concerns me a little bit, because although there are people who are happy to have that information and interested and excited to get that information, like you said, it kind of, when there's no news, you got to make news, because that's what you're dealing in. You're not actually dealing in books. You're dealing in the information of books. And that can tend to be a little bit more easy to corrupt, and I'm not going to get too political, but when I look at 24-hour news networks, I see the same thing. There's far less newsworthy things than they have to say. So everything gets sensationalized. And, the reason that you didn't know this was there is because it's so secretive, and now we found out, and we throw that out there. And so when that happens, it becomes more of a frenzy focus or a hype machine than it does actual information. And there's a difference between hype and information. Information is raw, and hype is a spin put on information to get you in a fever to spend money. Well, and so that's all I'm going to say about it.
Yeah, I have no problem with people disseminating information and their spin on it 24/7. I have no problem. People are free to spin whatever they want to spin. There used to be something in this country called civic duty, which has been lost to the ages, apparently. But you had a responsibility as a citizen to be up to date on what was going on in your country, to know the foundations of your country, to be aware of what's going on as far as the leadership and the laws and the foundations of the whole system where you live in. That has gone by the wayside. And with that, the whole sort of habit of being responsible for educating yourself. People are spoon-fed and spoiled so much that they just are expected that everything's going to be handed to them as far as info and the spin on it. And nobody takes responsibility for themselves anymore. I don't have a problem with Key Collector or Comic Tom or anyone else putting info out and spinning it however they want. Is it irresponsible? Not really. I mean, they're trying to make money, and there's people that want spun news and information. So they're providing a needed service because there's people out there that want it. The responsibility falls on people who are not educating themselves and blaming others for the mistakes that they are thereafter making or the losses that they perceive that they are sustaining.
I agree.
That's the main problem. And that was sort of my rant was focused on, the sad sacks who want to blame everybody else for their laziness and their perceived losses caused by other people. And so that's not what's going on. It's people who are just being lazy and not educating themselves. But yeah, if you have a massive population in comics of collectors and participants who are just being lazy and not educating themselves, and they want to be spoon-fed BS, all right, well, now there's a need for a service that is sort of unsavory to some, but I mean, it's a market and people want it and they want to pay for it, so they pop up. And Key Collector and Comic Tom and CBSI, they're all very popular because of that. But yeah, those are parts of it. You need to do your own research. You need to dig in. You need to spend hours a week. If you're serious about collecting, you should be spending hours every week researching and double checking and looking at multiple sources for everything, and not just go on Key Collector and on Dollar Bin Dive. There's more to it. If the more serious you want to be in the hobby, and it has nothing to do if you like modern or golden age or whatever, but the more serious and safe you want to be in the hobby, the more you have to educate yourself from multiple different sources to be well-rounded and then draw your own conclusions instead of just relying on one source here or there, which may or may not be reliable at any given time.
I agree, but the speed at which this information is being disseminated naturally proves almost by itself that it has not been properly vetted or cross-referenced. I mean, it's so lightning fast that there's no time. It's almost like a feeling like they're telling you, if you take the time to do your due diligence, you'll miss out. And that's where it gets a little bit unsavory, in my opinion. But ultimately, to kind of put this in a back in a box for a minute, so Roger had something to speak of. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, I'm in favor of anything that gives more information of the hobby and helps to separate people from their money on books that I'm not going after. So, I love it.
And look, misinformation and wrong information has a value also as providing a negative or a proof of other stuff. So misinformation, disinformation, and wrong information still has its purpose, because it's kind of hard if you're only following one lead of one type. But if you have wrong information and right information, you can gauge where you are sort of with respect to those much easier. And Knights has a good point. Like, it's ironic that the laziness and lack of research is at an all-time high, in my opinion, at a point when the amount of information available is at an all-time high as well. So there's so much more information, and people are taking advantage of it so much less. It's very ironic.
Well, it's the same thing. It's instead of just as in politically, people are there's a push. Everyone vote. Everyone vote. Everyone vote. Everybody needs to go vote. Okay, everybody vote. Well, what about, like you said, doing your civic duty and finding out who you should vote for and why?
I don't think everybody should be voting
by actually going into the issues and finding out which candidate agrees with you on those issues, as opposed to which candidate subscribes to the same news media you do.
Yeah, and you have to take a test for citizenship. I think I would not be opposed. Now, this is in a DS perfect world. This is not under the U.S. Constitution, obviously. But in a perfect world, I would not be opposed to a system where you had to pass a test every year before you're allowed to vote. Because is it a good thing if totally uninformed, uneducated people are voting? Is that good? Do you know what I mean? I'm not answering the question. I'm just throwing it out there. Always better to have educated, informed people voting, because they know what they're doing, rather than just hordes of people flocking to vote when they have no knowledge of sort of what's going on in the country. And it's not going to change an outcome on any particular vote one way or the other, but it's interesting to think about. Would you prefer just everybody vote regardless, or would you prefer people need to be educated about what's going on to be able to vote? Now, of course, everybody
in a perfect world, you have both. In a perfect world,
I'm not saying people shouldn't be allowed to vote.
No,
but it's an interesting thing to think about, and it gets you thinking about the civic duty and the responsibility to educate yourself on stuff. Think about that question and how do you feel about it? And then that gives you a sense of what do you think about civic duty and responsibility of educating yourself.
Right,
you know
because to me that's a stronger duty than just voting. You know, I don't care what your vote is if you're completely uneducated on the process and the candidates. I would much rather have 80% of the vote turned in by people that have educated themselves on the policies that are in place and the things that are at stake than have 100% of the vote and have 20% of those people have no clue what they're doing. So, but all that aside, poor Roger's chomping at the bit to say, hey, don't forget about Rob Boswell dropping that $1.99. Hey, all right. Let him go. And he is the first recipient of the look that people get. I've actually got comments about this. They say I leave the thing up too long and you can't see the last trot. I've got Instagram. I wish I could show. I usually delete those unsavory people. But speaking of which, hey, Bill, Comic Mag Musings in the house. Good to see you. And what's this? It looks like he struck again. Where's he at? Yeah, look at that. There's another one. Maybe he sent it through twice by accident, but there are no refunds. So we'll catch the slow trot. This one is a higher nature, so less is you can leave that. That we're all good now. Wouldn't you say? I think
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, good deal.
I'd say so.
So we thank you all for your
if you guys want to make a topic to discuss this type of stuff on a future show, I'm happy to do that for an hour or 10.
Wow.
I'm sure of that. Hey, we got Bueller in the house. Welcome and thanks for joining us with your busy schedule. And of course, we've got just everyone is sticking around. Thank you all for.
And Bueller is the epitome of what there should be more of in this hobby, which is a positive, laid back attitude and not be pissing and moaning and going after people and being salty. You know what I mean? He is where you should look to see how you should carry yourself in this hobby. I don't think I've ever seen him salty, except for his very first video with his pet peeves. That was pure saltiness with a dash of humor, and it was great. But you know what I mean? There's too much saltiness in the hobby is what I think.
Well, what I like is that, most people probably know that he's not a big fan of slabs as far as his own collection. But you never hear him say, CGC should go out of business. CBCS is a joke. I may have heard him say PGX is a joke before, but that's another issue. But you never hear him, trashing any of those services or the people that use them. It's just not for him. And that's more or less the way I feel about most things as well. If it's not for me, it's not for me. And again, anything that takes money out of the pockets of collectors that's not on buying books that I'm after, I'm all in favor for. That makes me very happy. It really does. Speaking of books, Roger, talk to us. What's the anybody know what the team name is tonight?
The back.
I think he just missed us so much, and he went. I thought it was
broke back,
missing our comrade.
Barbarians, I think.
Yeah, I thought it broke back, and then I was like, man, Bub's really missing us a little too much here.
Good iteration on this one this week, I thought.
Well, I was thinking, if you're lugging all the short and long boxes, you probably broke your back doing it.
Yeah, let me tell you, I just about did.
All right, let's get into the topic for this evening, which is, DS will remind us.
Oh, it's moving, how to move with your collection.
Yeah.
Implications of your collection for moving.
So I want to now. I've never moved with my collection. I've never had to move with my collection. My collection is from the very first comic book I ever brought home. It's been this home. So nice. I've never had to worry about it. Every time I bring a book home, from the very first short box I ever had was in this very room. The very first comic that I ever brought as starting a collection was in this room, and the last one I bought is still in this room. So I've never had to move with my collection. So I'm sure both of you have. So let's What happened? Let's hear from Roger, who's done it twice in the last 6 months.
Last 2 years. Last 2 years, I've done it twice. Yeah.
2 years. So my first question is, does it deter you from even wanting to move?
Well,
the thought of packing all that stuff out and away and moving it, does it even make you think, wait a minute, do we really want to do this?
It does, except that, you know, the positives outweighed the negatives as far as moving and financial. You know, the financial benefits were much greater than staying back in Mississippi. It's a hassle, as you can imagine, Bub, because when you have a collection of 10,000 comics and you are moving yourself, it can be physically and mentally taxing, and it certainly is.
Oh, you jumped ahead on one of my questions. Go ahead, though.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You're good.
But
that was one of my questions. So, and this is for anybody who's ever moved or ever moved a collection. What do you like? I've never used professional movers. I've always moved myself, but like my parents used professional movers. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, would I trust professional movers with my collection?
Yeah, I don't really. I don't really. So that's one reason why I didn't use them. Plus the fact that it wasn't that far a move. It was about a 7-hour move, and it was just one 20-foot U-Haul because we didn't have a lot of furniture that we were bringing over here. But I did consider it for, you know, a short bit of time. But, you know, one of the reasons that I am who I am, and I guess most people know this by now, is that my collection is very personal to me. It's very special to me. They're not just commodities or items. To me, they're part of who I am, and sort of give you a thumbnail sketch of the history of Metarog. So I wanted to keep as much control over it as possible. So I did. I guess I could go into a little bit of detail. Some family came from Florida to help us move, and they brought their car. So they drove their car plus my car, and I drove the big moving truck. And my more valuable, monetarily valuable, and personally valuable comics went in the car with them.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but that was only, you know, shall we say, 500 comics or so. And the rest of the 10,000 went in the truck with me, and I took precautions to make sure that everything would go, you know, as smoothly as possible during that ride. I can get into details, but I don't know if you want that much detail. But
well, I mean, that's important, though. I find it interesting that you sent your most valuable books with someone else. Like I would almost let someone else pack the other, you know, 9,950. And then,
well, the reason I sent it with them is that in the back of the truck, anything can happen, you know, and
right,
get jostled and so forth. And I had them packed in bubble wrap and tubs and shrink wrap, so I knew that nothing was going to happen to them outside of, you know, the car being utterly just demolished. So, and hopefully that would be the last of my worries if that was the case, right?
Right.
So that's why I sent it with them. But, you know, I took precautions. I shrink wrapped everything. I put everything up off the floor because, as you know, these big moving trucks, it says right on there, they're water resistant, but not waterproof.
Oh.
And it did rain the whole way. In fact, there was moisture that got through, I guess, from the splash up or whatever.
Oh, man.
So, but nothing was caught because everything was up on, you know, up off the floor. So, and everything was shrink wrapped, and I put bags, you know, I wrapped everything under tarps and things like that. So there would be no issues. And it was a 1-day move. It wasn't like it was overnight or anything.
Right.
So everything went well, thank God. No issues whatsoever. But I would say that if you are moving a huge collection, plan ahead and make sure that you pack everything super securely, not just sort of securely.
That's going to be the next one. Hold on. First, we got to get to our good old buddy Comic Mag Musing, courtesy of the reigning Cover Slingers champion, I think that is the. I think that's the channel. I want to say it's on Zlata's channel. Is it on? Is it on
Gray Man's channel?
Oh, it's on Gray Man's channel.
Yeah.
And then she like MCs it, right? She's like the host or judge.
She's the judge. Yes.
Yeah, the judge.
Yeah.
So good stuff. Cover Slingers. They keep saying anyone's available on there, and I keep saying I'm available to be on that show, and I still don't get an invite. So I think Roger's involved, and so by blocking me, he's like, no, because that would be. I think they do that on Sundays.
Saturdays.
So I think that he doesn't want to have anything to do with me twice one weekend. But here's the Comic Mag Musings. Let's see what's old Magsy want. Does he want the? I think, you know what, he's coming in here. He's $5 in after Rob's $4. I think he gets the Gorilla Attack. What do you think?
That's definitely $5 worth right there.
$5 worth right there. No change.
Wow.
You get no change on that one. That's all. That's a full $5. All right.
Wowzers. That's something.
That's a good one. So next we have the next question, and this is, if DS wants to chime in, I'm sure. Have you moved a lot of books, DS? Have you ever had a big move?
I got back into the hobby about 6 years ago. And I was living at my current location here. So the only move I've done has been moving 2 long boxes of my comics from my childhood from my parents' old house to where I am now. And then I've bought collections here or there that I've driven back to my house. So no, I haven't really done a move. But I don't have that many books. Probably all of my materials, books, everything in here. I mean, it would be a bit to move because I don't have that many books on my PC. I have a couple, 3 boxes of slabs, but I've got a bunch of raw stuff sitting here. I've got a press. I've got this case that you guys can see back here, and every shelf has stuff on it. So there's a good bit to move. What I would and I've paid movers before. And what I do is I take my valuable or personal stuff and load that up myself in my car. And then when the movers come, I say, have at it. And they pack up everything else. They're very efficient. They do it for a living. And then they pack everything else up. And then I basically meet them at the new place. They unload all that stuff. And then I have all my personal or valuable stuff in my vehicle that I drove. So I would probably do the same thing, but I probably would do the same thing. It might take 2 trips. But I have 2 vehicles and one's an SUV, so I could fit everything in my personal vehicles. And then I would just have movers pack up everything else.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. I've never had to do it. I'm in the same situation, and my collection's always kind of lived here. So I don't know. I feel like my collection, it depends how far. Like Roger said, if he's 7 hours, you're probably going to be making 2 trips anyway. If I had to move everything in my house, it probably would either be 2 trips with a smaller truck that I manage myself, or 1 big trip with 1 giant truck, in which case it would still all just go with me. I don't think I definitely wouldn't want to be shipping anything. So I don't think I would ever want to be doing that.
That would get mighty expensive too.
Yeah, that gets expensive. But now I have done that. Like when I go to New York, sometimes I'll, if I find something and I want to buy it, and I don't want to have to fool with taking it on a plane and wrapping it and everything, then I just put it in a box and I ship it to myself, and I get down, then I wait a couple days and it shows up. So I've done that, but comics are so daggum heavy. I don't think I'd want to fool with that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I shipped a collection that I sort of helped another, like a dealer that I'm friends with, pick up a collection, but I was close to it and he wasn't. And it was only 400 books. So not a ton of stuff, but still 400 books is not, you can't fit in your pocket. It's still a decent amount of books. So I had to ship all that to him, and I did it in 4 separate shipments of 20 pounds each. And the packing, the shipping, the cost of shipping it's not cheap to ship 400 books. And I can imagine if you were shipping a large portion of slabs in your collection to a new location, it would be pricey. You'd have to account for that in your moving budget. It's not cheap.
Yeah, it would add up fast, I believe.
Yeah. there's a level of prep work involved too. If you want to hear about,
let's talk about packaging. How are you going to secure this great collection?
Right. Well, okay.
Duct
I
tape.
can't think about every collection.
You duct tape your short boxes. That's it, isn't it?
Well, no, I shrink wrap them, so you don't. I didn't have to worry about them opening or have moisture involved or anything like that because they were hermetically sealed, essentially. When I did that, now there are certain, but you know, as the things that I'm showing you here, some of them are not comics, and that is another kind of challenge when you're moving. Is that things that have the unusual formats and shapes and sizes, etc. Like this thing here is a super thick book here. So, you know, you can't really, if you put that in a short box, it's so heavy, it could damage other books inside. So,
hey, Roger, could you raise your volume for us?
Maybe I'm talking on the wrong side. Hold on.
Nah, I'm teasing. I just wanted you to lift the book.
Oh. You're terrible. You can't take a break with you. So you know, you have to plan ahead of time. You know how you're going to pack this, right? I put it with some spacers. Make sure that it was fairly tight, but not over tight, so it wouldn't, you know, warp anything. Things that are magazine sized, of course, you have to be careful about not, you know, putting pressure of the regular size comic, because again, it'll bend around the edges if you put too much pressure. So those have to go in a magazine size box or some other box that again have like sizes and that are not too loose so that they don't, you know, obviously waggle around in there too much. Here's another one. You know, again, these are like sizes, even though they're different publications. And then, of course, you have the indexes like this, the Steranko cover. So again, you know, you have to sort of plan ahead about what you have and how it is that you're going to pack them, right?
What about posters? Did you have any posters you had to roll, or those are awful delicate?
Yes, and again, I took those down out of the Metacave weeks before, and I put them out on a large table, rolled them up, and I bought a tube, and they all,
for each one, or you put them all, like, stacked them?
Yeah, I just rolled them all up. Not all of them, but I think I had 3 tubes worth of posters. Yeah. So there were probably about 12 total posters in there.
Wow.
So yeah, those are the kind of things. And also I had, you know, like you were talking about slabs. And so what I did in preparation is that a lot of my, you know me, I really don't like these things. I'm kind of like Bueller that way. It just doesn't work for me on any level, right? But I do have some because that's the way they were sold to me as 30-cent variants way back in the day. So I took most of them out of the slabs. I cracked them out because these are so heavy, as DS was stating, that it was just problematic to move. I would need a whole nother essentially a whole nother system to carry the amount of slabs I have. Now I only have maybe 10 of them because they were just so, you know, once you unslab those things and you just weigh the slabs that you, without the comics, it was a good 40, 50 pounds, you know. Wow. So I saved quite a bit by taking them out of the slabs. Because again, it doesn't do anything for me. I'm not going to sell them. They're just for my collection. So I pretty much unslabbed all my 30-cent variants at this point.
Wow. Yeah, I don't hold it against anybody who likes raw books, and it is a space saver and it is a weight saver to not have the slabs. But sometimes you find a book that you want that is a slabbed copy, and you can buy the slab copy and crack it out. And then what you do is just keep the label in the back of the bag behind the board if you want, and then you're good to go. You're really, you know, you're going to get pretty much the same value if you ever decide to sell it, because, you know, most people will be able to look at it and tell that it's the same condition. If it's ballpark for what that label says, it's probably the same book. And, you know, most people can crack slabs and just put it in a Mylar, and then you're good to go. And it does save space. And I never understand when raw collectors refuse to buy a book because it's slabbed. Just crack the damn thing out and just put the label in the back, and it's almost like you got free grading service on your raw book. Yeah, I think it's a great idea to do, and I encourage anybody who collects raw books, crack the slabs and just keep the label, man. You're good to go.
Yeah,
that makes sense the other way around. If you're a slab collector, not buying raw because you don't want to take whatever chances, you just already want that work done for you. That makes perfect sense. But anytime a raw collector says, "I'll never buy a slab," I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I mean, some books.
Book.
And if you are a raw collector and your next book on your list is Hulk 181, and you want like a nice like a VF copy or like a 7.0 or something range, you want a solid condition, it's going to cost you a lot of money. You're better off buying a slabs copy where you already know that it's not restored, that it's complete, that the MVS is in there and it's all legit, and you know the grade is legit. And then buy the slab for the security of that purchase and then crack it out. It's very risky. The bigger the book is, the riskier it is to buy raw. Sometimes you don't have a choice, like this. It's not like I have seen one of these in 4 years. And I got this today, and there is some glue on the spine inside holding the cover to that first one on the edge here. So, it's not like it's replaceable anyway. So, I mean, I'm still happy to have it. And it's not a cosmetic resto issue. It's not ideal. But yeah, it just goes to show you there's risk with buying raw books, even from guys who know books that didn't catch it, because I really opened it up and it wasn't opening all the way on the one part, and I had to look closely, and it has some glue in here. I'll probably get it removed, or maybe not. But anyway, it's just going to stay like this for a while because I'm keeping it. But yeah, if I would have found this in a slab, I would have paid a little more for it. Even as a raw collector, for the security of knowing that the book is what it's advertised to be. Yeah, raw books carry risk, and the bigger the purchase, the bigger the risk. So slabs are handy for everyone, even raw collectors, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with them, but they're happy to move.
Yeah. I don't like them for me, like they just don't make sense for me, but I don't care about buying them. I'll just, like you said, I'll just crack. I don't have anything against them. I think they have a place in the market, just not for me personally. But yeah, I've bought many of way back in the day, 30-cent variants. We're talking 20 years ago. You could only find them slab, a lot of them, because they were so new and people didn't believe that they even existed and all that. So
now let's talk about this. You guys, we've talked about moving all these big giant, lugging these books around, right? So let's talk a little bit about temporary storage. Because Roger, you're not in your forever home right now, are you?
Correct.
So how soon do you think it'll be before you are moving yet again?
Probably about a year or so. It just depends. My wife has different goings on with her job and so forth. So if things break the way we think, in about a year we might be moving again. But it would probably we'll probably be staying in Florida though.
So if you do that, then are you going to go, since you have so much time, a whole year, I assume you're going to unpack all those books.
That's what I've been doing the past. If I haven't been really active for the last 2 weeks because I was packing in Mississippi and then unpacking and the home where we're in now is her parents' home, and it's been empty for 2 years since they passed away. So I've had to repair and I've had to replace a lot of things and unpacking all the stuff that we had. So I haven't even been on YouTube really for 2 weeks. But I have done it. I wanted to set it up so that, I could do the No Faces chat. I could show my comics. I can do my videos again, which I love to do, my special videos, and of course the roundup. So I had to set up the spare bedroom almost like a meta cave, except that it's very, very cramped. But I have access to my comics now, at least.
Nice. I do like that. You gotta, even if they're not fully displayed, you want to be able to get to one when you need one, unless it looks like that. Good grief, DS. What is that?
This book's actually not that hard to find, even though I don't think it had a big print run. They're out there all over the place, and it's really not that expensive, and it's badass, right? I mean, it's Dead World 1. It's an Arrow publication from 86, I think, something like 1986. Mm-hmm. And it's a Vince Locke cover. who did some stuff for Arrow, but he's not a very well-known name. But yeah, I mean, this thing is just awesome, man. A black cover, and I think you could probably get like a 9.8 for like $150, which is probably what I'll do at some point. But I bought a lot on Instagram claim sale with this and a bunch of Dave Stevens stuff and some other books, and so it didn't cost that much per book, so I just picked them up for the hell of it. But yeah, I've never had this book, and I wanted a copy, and it's just, man, it's just so cool. The colors on this, the black cover, it's awesome, man. I'm surprised this is not a more popular book, honestly.
Cool. Wow. That's crazy looking.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks.
Well, I know that Jimmy the Geek Aficionado is excited to have second pick through the Dave Stevens stuff you got. So I'll let him know when I'm done looking at him.
Well, I'll tell you, my strategy is I pick up Dave Stevens stuff when I find it for cheap, and then I will keep like 9.8 contender type stuff, and then the rest I move on. But, you know, when it comes to Dave Stevens, I have a hard time not picking up Dave Stevens stuff when it's cheap. Even if I don't need it, or even if I know it's not going to be a 9.8, I don't know. I feel like I should pick it up and have it, and then maybe a friend or somebody, you know, Bub or Aficionado or somebody will want it, and I just cannot leave Dave Stevens stuff sitting around for cheap. Just really cool stuff. It's like one of my sort of guilty pleasures of a Golden Age collector is just being over the moon on Dave Stevens stuff. So yeah, I love Dave Stevens. I pick it up when I can find it cheap, and then usually I end up moving it if it's not like 9.8 contender. So I picked up, yeah, look at, so this is the stack of Dave Stevens stuff I got.
Oh, we'll go through it after we go off air.
Yeah, all right. I mean, this is all Dave Stevens, everything, and they're all freshly bagged and boarded, and I looked at them, and I think maybe there's one 9.8 contender. So
that's good news for me.
Yeah, good news for you, an aficionado. Maybe we'll do a Western OK Corral style two-man auction on these or something. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, that's a nice stack of Dave Stevens stuff to get for cheap, along with that Dead Worlds and a couple other things. So hell yeah,
yeah, I can dig it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. Mike in the chat was saying, Area 51 was saying he would choose death before having to move his collection, and that's, I would say, because I assume that he keeps a lot of his boxes for all those statues that he has and figures. Goodness, could you imagine trying to pack all those up individually and to keep the boxes themselves pristine? Because as you know, most collectors, I don't know about most collectors, but I know I have a lot more than just comics that I would have to pack. And, you know, it doesn't all pack very easily.
No.
I have a tip for boxes. I have moved boxes around, although I have not moved to a new house with them. But when I get a new comic box put together, what I do is I get packing tape and I tape all the edges and all of the corners, and I put tape around the top part where the handles are on the edges. I run the tape from the top through the handle loop and back up. So I reinforce that. And then I tape up all the edges and corners on the top and the bottom. And it takes a minute, and it's very OCD, of course. But, man, the boxes last way longer. You can slide them, and they don't tear, and it's really a good way to make the boxes last longer.
Good deal.
Good idea. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. Where were you 2 weeks ago when Roger was dragging wet short boxes across the floor?
Well, I think if they're wet, that's not going to be good no matter what. But
yep. Once I knew that already, so that's why I do
full box. We do a lot of dragging and pulling of boxes, sliding them around. You know, we all do that. So if you tape all the edges on the corners on the bottom, it will sustain that dragging and pushing and pulling for a much longer period of time. And yeah, I treat the boxes I have as you know, sort of like assets too. I don't want to have to be buying new boxes. I don't want my boxes to get tore up and destroyed. So I treat them very carefully, and I try to protect them to make them last. And mainly it's because I still cannot figure out how to put those damn things together. So it always takes me a minute. I feel like Bueller did an episode on this, and I feel like all of them are quicker than me at putting a box together. no joke, I can't figure those things out. I don't buy them very often, so I always have trouble with it.
Yeah, they so the last collection that I went and sold off, right? So the last big chunk, not this most recent one that I got rid of this weekend, but the one prior to that had, I think, boxes A through J or something like that, maybe K. Well, I had taken them in a brand new short box that I had. It was just a regular BCW short box. And he kept the box. The shop kept the box. And I said, I'm good with that, but you got to give me a box, right? Because, it can be one that I got to put together. I don't care. But you got to give me a new box if you don't feel like dumping all these out and getting another box. Yeah, exactly. And he was like, well, that's why I need to keep it. I don't have any more. So, it was already a good deal, so I let it slide. But this past weekend, I brought a box to him, and it was one of those like decorated boxes, like the painted or whatever. It has like Batman all over it. So as soon as I walked in, I told him, I said, you're going to have all the comics in this box, but you're not getting the box. He's like, I'll start moving them out right away. So as he was going through and pricing them in his head and seeing what the offer was going to be, he didn't put them back in the box. He kept them out of the box. So, that is what it is, but you got to hold on to those good boxes when you get them. Don't let people take them from you, because when I need a box, I can't get a box. And then when I don't need a box, they got them stacked to the ceiling. So that just seems to be how it is.
Yeah, usually when I go buy a collection, which I don't buy massive ones because I don't have the room or manpower or anything, but I usually go to Walmart from time to time and I buy a stack of bankers boxes. And I think you get 10 in the package. It's pretty cheap, honestly, for boxes. And they're pretty solid and they stack nice. And I buy bankers boxes and I'll bring those with me if I'm buying a collection. And then it's sort of like Tetris to sort of piece the stacks of books into those bankers boxes. But yeah, if you're going to pick up books, always assume that you're not going to have the box, because there's been times I've gone and they're like, well, do you have something to put them in? Because they're in this crate and I'm keeping it, or they're in these boxes that I still need. And then you're kind of screwed, because especially if you have a card drive of any length, you can't just have loose books rolling around everywhere. So
yes,
I keep bankers boxes on hand for when I go pick up stuff. In case they don't let me keep the boxes, I'll have bankers boxes at least.
Yeah, and trunks, like you never realize just how slippery the carpet in your car or trunk is.
Yeah.
Until you take a turn with a full short box, and you just hear it go stunk. You're like, oh.
I've definitely had that happen before.
Yeah, never put comics loose in a car if you're going any distance. That's just
for sure.
It's a formula for, if you care about the condition. I mean, if they're already beat up, well, then who cares? But if they're in any good condition, definitely have, like I said, banker boxes. I find like vegetable boxes work as well.
Vegetables? What are those?
Those vegetables, those things that grow out of the ground. Yeah.
My wife eats that rabbit food.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Yeah, those work good too. And a lot of times, if you're going to pick up a collection, a lot of people are selling books as just stacks of raw books. And I don't like stacking raw books vertically in a short box because they bend. So I rather stack them flat. And in a banker's box, you can make one big stack on the corner, and then you can that has support for more like vertically standing ones along the other two edges, sort of. And it makes it a much safer way to transport stacks of raw books, I feel like. Unless you can get the short box exactly all the way full and there's no give in there. But I don't like stacking raw books vertically. It bends the corners and the spines, and it's just no good. So banker's box is better for raw books.
Yeah, better to lay them flat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason I said vegetable boxes is, if you're in a pinch, you can always go behind a grocery store or supermarket, and they usually have tons of them back there. So if you're picking up a collection, I used to pick up a collection at least every year, maybe 10 years and back. And that would be sort of my MO. I'd go to the grocery store, I'd pick up the vegetable boxes, go to the place, buy the collection, bring them back in the vegetable boxes, and on we go.
Yeah, I sometimes have gone to Walmart at like 10 or 11 o'clock when the night shift is just starting. And they're bringing out the pallets and loading up the shelves with stuff. And you can pick up some really good cardboard and boxes and materials like that for free because you just go in there and like, hey, can I take some of this? And they're like, yeah. And you just take it and walk out with a cart full of cardboard and boxes that's free. And you know, that's no joke because cardboard and boxes are freaking expensive. If you run out and you have to buy stuff, it's pricey, man. I buy custom sized boxes for stuff that I sell, and I have to count that cost in. It's not cheap to buy boxes. I think a lot of people don't realize if they're not buying their own boxes, they use the USPS ones. But boxes and cardboard is expensive if you have to buy it. So anything you can do to get it for free is an awesome deal.
Heck yeah. I shipped something to Canada, actually for our good buddy Area 51. So I shipped something to him, and it was so big I had to go buy. They didn't make a box the right size, so I had to buy a box that was like the biggest box they had at Office Depot, right? And then cut it down to make it fit. And it was like, I don't know, $16 for the box. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I spent like another, I don't know, $15 in bubble wrap. It was ridiculous. I was like, this is absurd. It's getting out of hand, you know?
I was going to tell you just a quick story about how, you guys know, I'm a consummate cheapskate, right? I don't like to pay for anything if I can get it for free, right? So I've been accumulating over Mississippi boxes for shipping AOKs and things like that, and things that I sell on the on forums and all that. And I must have had a good 40-50 boxes already lined up over there. And when I moved, it was obvious to me that I couldn't take all those boxes with me because it just didn't fit in the 20-foot truck with everything else that we had. So I cried when I took those to the recycling. But I did keep one big box of all the Gemini mailers and things like that. But all my other boxes that had been accumulating for the 2 years I was there, I had to recycle, and that hurt because I know that stuff is not cheap when you buy them, and when you have to buy them purposefully.
Yeah. You want to hear about my box jackpot I had last year? This is the only crowd that would truly appreciate it.
Like that. Could we say no? I mean, could we really say no to that?
The crowd will appreciate it, and though nobody else in my real life appreciated it, they thought I was fucking weird and whatever. So, all right. So the place I work at, they ordered new furniture like chairs and tables, and it's a restaurant, so it's that type of stuff for the whole restaurant. They renovated the whole thing, and they bought all new chairs and tables and everything. All the chairs got shipped in these big sort of like clothing size boxes. It was one chair turned upside down on top of the other chair, and those two in a big box. And they were all massive size boxes, obviously, compared to the boxes we normally deal with. They were all super like double corrugated, like it was almost like wood. It was such a cardboard. Like you could barely even fit a razor all the way through it to cut it. It was so good. And it was all in really good shape, and it had massive panels on the side because these are big boxes. So when they came, I said to the general manager, I said, hey, I want all this cardboard. He's like, you want all these boxes? I'm like, yes, I want them all. And so I wasn't even working that day. I was there for something else, or I was there for working for a short time. And then I clocked out, and I spent the next like 2.5 hours breaking down all of those boxes. And I had to get a razor and cut them to fit them in my car. And I had huge panels of perfectly flat, straight, heavy-duty, double corrugated cardboard that lasted me for like 8 or 9 months solid. And you know how many pieces of cardboard you can cut out of one of those massive panels to sell books. Man, it was almost like a never-ending supply. I remember the basement was filled with this stuff. It was awesome. Loved it.
Cool. And then you ran out, right? You used it all?
Well, yeah, and I was so excited about it. I didn't keep track of when I was getting low, and I ran out before I had new stuff. And then after I ran out of the good stuff, I was scrounging around for scraps around town, basically. And I had crap cardboard for a while before I got my crap together. So, yeah, I went from a massive high to a deep low on the cardboard. Quite the cardboard roller coaster in 2019.
That sounds like a documentary or something on BET. Yeah. Talk about
everybody thought I was crazy. Nobody appreciated the value of this cardboard, and I'm like, comic collectors would appreciate this. None of them are here right now, but they would appreciate how awesome this cardboard is. Massive flat panels of double corrugated cardboard, and there must have been, when I cut the box into 4 panels, there must have been a total of 110 panels or something crazy. It was a ton of cardboard, and it was like a gold mine of comic book cardboard.
Wow.
Really
well,
great.
I'll tell you, one thing that I know Silver Age Dave, he goes crazy over that styrofoam, right? Whenever he finds pressed styrofoam, he goes nuts. He jigs it out of the trash can. He stops by construction sites to see if they're letting any of it go. He loads up his car and brings it home and makes little panels out of it to fit in his boxes as spacers for his comic boxes. So, yeah, I mean, everybody's got something they're always yanking out of the trash. It's their old treasure,
Oh yeah, construction sites are another gold mine. If once they finish up, sometimes they have all these huge boxes of tiles, things like that. They just throw to the side. And like DS, I go in there and I pick those up, double corrugated. Those make great backing boards. To ship. Oh, fabulous stuff.
Can't beat it.
Comic collectors are very resourceful. We
are.
find ways of doing things. I mean, the only people in the world that use painter's tape are painters and comic book people. I mean, we've found the perfect kind of tape for certain things, and certain types of, when I say double corrugated or any other types of cardboard or whiteboard, or we know different mill thicknesses for plastic. That's the thickness of the hair. It makes a difference what type of plastic. We're very resourceful, and we really go to the furthest ends to find the right supplies and preservation materials. It's great. I love that stuff.
I'm with you.
Yeah, we're all like amateur chemists, weathermen, repairmen, handymen, materials experts. We have all kinds of expertise in all these things because they all have to do. Like I have here in Florida, you have to have one of these dehumidifiers in comics, or else forget it. It's all sort of encompasses the comic collector, at least the advanced ones. You have to have knowledge of all these different subjects in order for your comics to be in good shape.
And I don't think T-shirt press companies realize that 40% of their revenue is from comic book people. And Scotch's blue tape revenue is 35% higher than it normally would be because of comic book collectors. I don't even think anybody knows except for comic book collectors.
That's funny. I tell you, I'm glad you guys mentioned the weather outside, because I have my press in the garage. There's no climate control in the garage. I mean, it's not catching wind or anything like that. I mean, it has walls and everything, but there's no real climate control. And it's perfect for pressing books because I live in a rather humid area, in Kentucky. It's pretty much, I wouldn't say it's wet year round, but we have our droughts here and there. But for the most part, it's always, when it's hot, it's kind of humid also. So what I do is that before I press a book, I use my garage as a giant humidity chamber, and I just take the book, I open it to the centerfold, and I let it sit there, and it just relaxes the whole book. Of course, I have a clean table and all this stuff, and I have stuff covering it so nothing falls on it, but it just sits there and relaxes. And if I leave a book out there for 20 minutes in natural weather, it's as soft and supple as you'd ever get it out of a humidity chamber with no water or risk of it. So it's awesome. And then I press my books, and then they just come out flat as a pancake. So
I don't feel so bad for using tap water now. We found a new low for dirty water to humidify your books.
garage mist.
Next person that craps on me for using tap water for a humidity chamber, I'm going to send them your way, bub.
Go for it, man. If I press for someone else, I use my humidity chamber. But when it's my own books, I'm like, hey, man, this works. It's fast, and I feel safer even using it. No chance of dipping a corner in the water or anything like that. So it's a win.
Cool. Cool stuff, man. Cool stuff.
Oh, my goodness. You guys. Well, what do you think, guys? You got anything else you want to yet? Look, Roger, didn't you? Oh, see, and I haven't had Roger on one of my cola collection videos, have I?
No, because it's and a good thing you don't, because I did watch some of that one with DS, and I'm like, I would keep most of those, and you guys like, that's like you can get this again. I'm like, no.
Well, yeah, I've learned you have to be very diplomatic when you're on that topic with Bub. You can't just say dump everything, or then you have no credibility and you're not working with him. And then you just lose all sort of influence over it. So you have to be prepared to make sacrifices and let him keep some crap. And then you can convince him to get rid of some of the other crap. So it's a delicate balance, Roger. It's not an easy job, I'll tell you.
I know. But I mean, that's just that the way that you guys look at comics is diametrically opposed to the way I do.
Well, no, you have to remember, Roger, that I did collect these books. I mean, they were in my collection. So it's not that I have no love or value to them. I have tons of love and value to them, but I just also value very much being able to easily and systematically go through my collection. I love the Kamagories type of thing. If somebody says, do you have a book in your collection that matches the following criteria, and can you pull it in 30 seconds? My answer I want to always be yes. Mm-hmm. And the collection had got bigger than my own space. Like DS had said in that very video, if I had a whole nother wing of the house to devote to comics, then this would be another situation. But I don't. And I have other hobbies. And as you know, Roger, when you have other hobbies, they're always competing for space, because you only have one space really for all your hobbies when you're in a loving relationship, So,
and I might feel differently if I was like, if I had been collecting without break like Roger, I can't say that I wouldn't be the same as him, where I would have been collecting for 30 or 40 years straight with basically no break. And I would just keep everything, because then it's like a massive pedigree that's like the story of your life collecting. But I've always felt, ever since I've gotten back in the hobby, and especially since we've started doing the show and been friends, that I always feel like Roger has this massive head start on me, and I'll never catch up to. And I'm always eternally behind the 8 ball, that I feel this pressure within myself to sort of be a little more fast and loose with books, to sort of play catch up to the collectors that had it right off the bat and never screwed up and just went straight through and have awesome like pedigree type collections. So yeah, I mean, the way I do it now is based on the circumstances of how I've gotten back into collecting and when. But I'll tell you, if I would have followed Roger's path, I might be the same as him, where I've collected so much stuff over the years, and it's a sort of a story of my life, and I'm more emotionally attached to everything. That I might have a similar type of size collection. But it's just, I always feel like I'm behind the 8 ball, and I'm always playing catch up to guys that have done it for so long.
Again, it's a double-edged sword, DS. I mean, and I don't expect people to collect the way I do. I mean, that's absurd, right? I mean, to me, it's I take it to, I think, an extreme that most people don't. Like when I saw you two do the culling thing, right? Most of the stuff that you guys culled were things that were, common, or that you could get again, or didn't have much value, things like that. So that was your perspective. But to me, each comic has a certain emotional attachment that I have to it. So it's difficult for me to remove myself from the attachment of the comic itself, or the nostalgia behind it. So I don't expect everybody to do that. But if you have me on your show, Bub, you're going to call a lot less. So keep going with DS. If you want to keep stuff, then you call me.
Well, I'm happy to be bumped back into the chat where I can just type dump it for every book that comes up, and not have any repercussions personally for that. So I'm happy to go back in the chat, and then Roger can go on there, and you'll get a much more insightful sort of aspect and look into why a particular book that DS is saying dump it, maybe you should keep it. So yeah, I don't know. It's good to have different people on there, Bub. You get different perspectives. If you just have me on there and then Knight's joining halfway through, man, we'll get you down to 100 books in no time.
Well, you guys, I I'm sure you guys haven't had a chance to watch the video I posted earlier today.
No, I haven't. No.
But I got I got 3 Golden Age books. I got one modern book, 3 Golden Age books, and 2 silvers, and one of them is a first appearance key. For that group that I sold.
Nice. Awesome.
And 2 collectibles, which were really gifts for Christmas to give away. So I mean, it's like, there's no way that I'm upset. Those 6 books are, first of all, more valuable in my opinion than the ones than any 30 or 40 of those other books put together. And to have them moved out, and one of the Silver Age books was one that was on my list and brought me from missing 3 in that run to only missing 2. So Good. That was really helpful. So it wasn't just random books either. There were 2 books that I actually wanted very much, and then 3 Golden Age books he just happened to have. So yeah, they're coming home with me, Yeah,
that's good stuff. And I'll admit it, and I've admitted all the time, I'm pretty shallow. I like covers and I like money. So I would never request that you cut the value of your collection. I just like lesser number of books of higher average value so that the value is maintained, but there's just less overall bulk. That's sort of how I do it. But I really like the covers, and I really like the monetary aspect of the hobby. It is what it is. That's what I like. I really love the art visually, and I really love the monetary value. It's like an extra exciting aspect to the hobby that can actually affect your life positively or negatively, and it's much more complex. And then after those 2 things, I also like the stories and the characters. But I'm a Golden Age collector, so I'm not really into stories and characters as much as Silver Age or Bronze Age or modern collectors are. I like cover art, and I'm shallow. I like to look at the pictures, you guys. You guys know that.
Doesn't make you shallow. It's just art.
I can't sit and read for too long, And if it's not a comic, forget it. I can't read anything. But at least in a comic, there's pictures that keep me engaged. But even then, I fade pretty quick. So I just like looking at the pictures. That's pretty much it.
Wow. I think you're selling yourself a bit short there, Diaz. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I love comics, but I am not an avid comic reader. But I do really enjoy coming in here and reading a comic book, and usually something that I've never read before. And I like reading stuff that's not like, if I have a raw Hulk 181 sitting here and then a raw random Mr. Miracle issue, I will read the Mr. Miracle issue because I have no idea what to expect. The Hulk 181, everybody knows already what that is.
Yep.
Even if you haven't read it. So it's like, I will read stuff that I have no idea what's going to be in there, even if it's not going to be popular or not a key, like some random DC Comics Presents. That was one of the most fun things I've read this year, was the Spectre versus the Superman in a DC Comics Presents. I enjoyed it so much, I posted it on my Instagram, and it's a crap book. It's worth like $1, if that. That was such an awesome story, and the art was cool. I really loved it. And that's a book, you never know what to expect when you open that up.
Yeah, and I love that aspect about comics too, is exactly that. It doesn't matter what the value of it is. It's the inherent value of being surprised and astonished and moved by the comic.
Yeah.
That really gets me excited about like I'm trying to complete my Atlas Seaboard collection, and I started reading through some of those, and I'm like, man, I got to finish that set. So I texted Collecting Chaos, because he had doubles, to see if I can get finish the set, because I want to read through the rest of it, because I just find it really fascinating that kind of publisher came in, trying to emulate Marvel and went out in a few months. But the comics themselves are just so weird and just off the wall that I just love them.
Yeah, and that's what I find a lot of times when I read Charlton's, like Silver Age stuff. The Golden Age stuff's pretty much like the other Golden Age stuff, but Silver Age Charlton stuff is always very different. I feel like every time I read a Silver Age Charlton book, it's always a pleasant surprise and a nice change of pace. I'm looking forward to reading this one either tonight or tomorrow. I don't know what this is about. Obviously, I just like the cover, but I don't know. It's got to be cool inside, right? It's an Arrow. I've never read an Arrow book before, and I don't know if the interior artist is Vince Locke. I don't know really. You can't even really tell what it's about. So yeah, this is going to be cool. I'm going to check this out. I'm excited about this one.
My problem is when I read books, I fall in love with them. I either hate them, and I get 3 pages in, and I can't wait to get to the end.
Yep.
Or I absolutely fall in love with it, and I cherish it, and I think about the story for days, and I never want to get rid of it, and I want to keep it forever, and then I end up with these long runs with semi-okay art, maybe even on the interior too, but the covers are just bland. A lot of them are, they're just okay. But the story was so good, and I end up with all these books that I don't know what to do with, because am I really ever going to read them again? And that's kind of what I did in this last group. I was talking to my wife. I was like, I love that story, but I haven't reread it. It's been, 3 years since I read it last. I haven't reread it, and I still remember it perfectly. There's very little chance I'm going to go back and read it again. So let's let somebody else enjoy it. It's a hard thing to do, though.
One of my favorite books to reread every time I get one, and I've had 2 or 3 copies, and then the reprint is Tomb of Dracula 10. I always love reading that book. I don't know. It's such a cool Marvel bronze book. I don't know. I like Tomb of Dracula 10. I always read that one. But the rest of the stuff for keys, I will just glance through it if I haven't read it before, and I'll kind of see what it's about. And I already know sort of what's coming. And but I have a key. I might as well read it, so I'll check it out. When I get a Tomb of Dracula 10, I always like reading that. That's a cool one. But other than that, mostly what I read is off-the-wall stuff that I don't know what it's about. Like even this Dead World is more exciting to me to read than this one, because I've read a lot of Golden Age books, and I've read some Harveys, and I've read a lot of stuff like this where it will definitely be super cool, but this isn't going to surprise me. You know what I mean? It'll be cool, and there'll be some really good art and some cool stories, and there's some World War II stuff, and there's probably a Kitty story in here. I know what's going to be in here. This I have no idea, so I'm more excited to read that, even though this I'm more excited to own.
Yeah, I understand that completely. One of the books that I read often is Giant Size X-Men #1. I have had 4 or 5 different versions of that book, reprints and the original, and every time I even see it, I take it out and I read it.
Yeah, I've never read that. I've only had 1 copy, and I got it in a trade, and it was a slabbed 7.5, and then I quickly sold that to a member of the community. I've never had a raw copy of that, and I've never had a reprint. I've never read Giant Size X-Men.
I just love it. It's got so many new characters. It's so full of action and fast-paced dialogue, and everything just moves at a breakneck pace. And some people would say, well, they don't flesh out the story enough, and there's silly origins, and it all happens just too quickly. But it's just great. It just all picks everybody up, puts them where they need to be, and then starts the story. And it's just so much fun to read for me. I just really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, it is action-packed. I agree with, and also you have good cockroom art.
Yeah. The art's fantastic.
Fantastic in that. I agree with you wholeheartedly here, Bub. I had a coverless issue for many years, which I still don't know what happened to it. And I must have read that thing 20 times.
You probably read the cover off it.
No, I never had a cover on it. I got it like that out of the dollar bin, but I don't know what happened to the rest of it. But I have a reprint of it now, and I agree. It is a really, really good comic to read. If you like action, it's a very good superhero comic. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the Bronze Age stuff better than the Silver Age stuff. Whenever I read Bronze, it's always more fun than when I read Silver Age Marvel for the most part. Especially early Silver Age Marvel, it's very, I don't know, it's just too childish or something. I know they're just getting started in sort of superhero comics, so it's still basic.
I prefer and I know, I get a lot of flack for this in the Golden Age circles anyway. Those deep, dark, seedy, snooty corners of the interwebs. And I get fussed at because I like the pacings of like a Harvey, Dick Tracy reprint run.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy those immensely. I read them, I reread them. I'll read it all the way through, and then I'll turn it over and I'll read it again before putting it back up, because I just love looking at the art. I love the straight linear design of the because it's just reprinted comic strips, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't have big flashy pages and splashes and interconnecting and double page spreads. None of that. It's simple, pure comics. And I love that about it. And so I can enjoy those a lot better than a lot of Silver Age, especially Marvel. Now, Silver Age DC has a campiness to it that I just kind of appreciate. And the art kind of follows in suit with that. So it's pretty good stuff. But the Silver Age Marvel is just kind of, it is almost like children's books. It reads and feels like children's books.
Yeah, I like Silver Age Flash. I always really enjoyed reading that. I love the Silver Age Flash. I was working on a run of that at one point. The Silver Age Marvel, of the stuff I've read, Hulk 1 is one of my favorites. I read a reprint of that, obviously. The early ASMs are okay, but they're hit and miss for me, it seems like. The X-Men stuff is not really that good for me. I'm not a very big fan of the early X-Men stuff. I don't know. When you get into like the Bronze Age and you got like Bronze Age X-Men or Bronze Age Warlock stuff or Bronze Age Gil Kane cover type, those kind of books, there's a ton of cool titles. There's a lot of action. There's a good sci-fi element to a lot of that stuff. There's really cool, like a darkness to the villains that's not there in Silver Age stuff. Sometimes I'm not sure if the hero is actually going to die when I read the Bronze Age stuff, where in the Silver Age, you can just tell it's not happening. Bronze is a little more evolved after they've done the Silver Age for 10 years. I like the Bronze Age stuff. But Silver Age DC is kooky. It's good. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it too.
It's got a goofy charm to it for sure.
But it's not as childish. Even as goofy as it is, it's kind of poking fun at itself, poking fun at the reader, and it's much more of a at least late teen goofiness.
Yeah,
than it is like a preteen goofiness. If that helps at all.
There's a sort of spoon-fed feel to the early Marvels. That I enjoyed it when I was a kid, but now I'm like, hard to take. There are exceptions to that, but
kind of like current Marvel books. But we won't talk about that.
Golden Age, I think it's pretty much one end of the spectrum or the other. It's either very childish stories or it's very heavy-duty adult-themed stories with heavy violence and over-the-top gruesomeness and just like timely splash pages type stuff, or MLJs, or pre-code horror way over the top as far as adult theme type stuff. And then the other stuff that's mixed in with it is very childish. It's usually kids trying to solve crimes or do like kid stories. Those seem to be the two types of stories in Golden Age books. There's not really much in between. There's not a whole lot in between.
Yeah. And then even in the Golden Age, there's a little bit of that. Like, I like the classic Daredevil stories, the Golden Age Daredevil. Yeah. But then when they start with the kids, what is it? Daredevil and the little goofwads or whatever those kids are named?
I don't know. Remember what they're called.
Yeah, the boys.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like the stories are bad. The art even suffers some.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the early Daredevil issues, you have multiple stories in those books, as most Golden Age books have multiple stories in there. And you have a story with little kids trying to find their friend who's lost. And then the next story is Daredevil versus the Claw, and it's this monstrous figure who has like Nazi slaves that he's going out there to light people on fire. You know what I mean? And then the next one that is a little Katie lost her balloon and her friend's trying to help her get it. And then the next one is it's some crazy stuff over the top. It's one or the other, it seems like.
That's true. And I always like the Golden Age stuff where you can open the inside cover and it tells you how to break into somebody's house.
Yeah.
You don't get that in any other age. Like, nobody's doing that.
Well, I mean, yeah, and you have a Golden Age book for kids, and on the back it has ads for rifles and revolvers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really like the Wild West in comics back then. They really didn't have any rules, and they were just doing whatever to sell, and they would put the most outlandish stuff they could, but they still had to keep it relatable to some degree to kids. So they had kid stuff in there, and then they had over-the-top stuff in there. But yeah, Golden Age is really, really cool stuff. And then I agree with what Disney and comics said. The stories and art seem to be deeper and more involved in the Bronze Age than the Silver Age, and that's exactly how I feel. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that's what sort of distinguishes the ages there, is that it got the stories got a lot more, for lack of a better term, realistic, and had more of a realistic tone rather than the imaginary or the formulaic. Hero is always going to be standing at the end. Silver Age and the Bronze Age, sometimes they got beaten to a pulp.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you just didn't know when that would happen.
And there were heroes and villains who actually did die in the Bronze Age. I feel like in the Silver Age, there was maybe one where it's like a single issue. They introduced a villain who died in the same issue, maybe in a Spider-Man or something. But in the Bronze Age, the death was there was a real danger that might happen at any issue that wasn't present in the Silver Age.
Right.
For a great degree, it was not. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, what do you think? Did we do it? Did we waste everybody's time for another hour or so?
I think we did it.
I think we did it.
Somewhere on the East Coast, there's a wife going to bed alone, comic widow.
That would be mine.
Somewhere on the West Coast, there's another father who didn't come to the table for supper because he was busy with the No Faces comic chat. So I think we've done our part to improve the hobby. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we definitely enriched the community today.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
What's that I hear? Do I hear knocking? Is that a knocking? You guys hear that?
No, I don't hear anything.
No,
it's probably on. It's not on my mute. Wait, I'll mute my thing. Me.
I think I hear knocking maybe on Rogers. Is somebody knocking?
It's not mine. I don't wait. I think I mute everybody else and see what happens. Oh, it must be Rogers.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There it is. There's Liz.
Hey, Liz.
Hey, how's it going?
She flew over to Florida.
Bless her heart. She had to come all the way. It's just so sad. Bless her heart. She had to really work for it. Marilyn was waiting too, but she just couldn't make the trip. The helicopter wasn't going to get there in time. So yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, guys. Well, we'll let Roger tend to business there. The rest of us will go on with our lives. So thanks so much, everybody that was here. Thanks for all the generous super chats, really helping keep the lights on over at BUB'S Comics here. We're keeping the lights on for the No Faces comic chat. All revenues earned from the No Faces comic chat are put directly back into the production of this show in the form of paying Roger to appear. Because I didn't know if you guys knew this, but Roger's under contract. So, all right, we thank you all for joining us. And Roger, what do you got coming up on your Dem Dare channel?
Well, I should be back this Thursday with Roundup. I've still got a lot of videos I have to watch, the contest videos, things like that, to catch up. But I think I have some time on Wednesday, so I should be back on Thursday. And so come and watch and support the community through their contest. Not only are they giving us stuff, but they are celebrating their milestones by giving us stuff. I think Slim, who's here in the chat, is having a contest coming up this week. So watch the Roundup, not because of my channel, but to support the other great channels here in the community. So no deep dive into the Obscura for Tuesday? I don't think I'm going to have time. No, I don't think I'm going to have time for this Tuesday. But next week I'll have something for sure. All right. Sounds good. And what about you there, DS? Oh, and of course, Roger wants to tell everyone to be blessed and be back. Nice. DS, what do you got?
Well, if you haven't seen my rant, go check it out. If you have an hour and 15 to spare and you want to hear me rant, go check that out.
Even if you don't have it to spare, it's time well spent.
Well, I feel like it's worth it. It felt good to do it, and the feedback's been positive thus far. I've had more thumbs down on CGC unboxings than I have on that video, which is surprising, but whatever. I've got probably 5 or 6 submissions at CGC. I just sent another one off. I don't know. I think maybe 5. One of them's a FF48, like a nice solid mid-grade. That should be coming back next. I'm really excited to do that. So I'll do unboxing videos on all this stuff as it comes back. Some cool stuff on all of those, but the FF48 is probably coming back next, and I'm real excited to get that one. So yeah, there's a bunch of those coming up, and other than that, that's it. You can catch me tomorrow night on the Comic Core, 10 Eastern for Golden Guys, where we talk about Golden Age comics.
Yes. No, yet another show I've been threatened with an invite and still waiting by the inbox. It's just one of those things. Thank you. And what would you like to tell the fine folks at home?
Make sure you do your homework and don't be listening to other people. Do your own homework.
That's right. Doing your homework is not copying off other people's papers.
Exactly. Well put.
Doing your homework. Yeah, that's right. And that's all I've got for you on my channel. We'll probably post another much loved. I'm telling you, I've been posting these Tetris videos and these classic kind of reimagined classic game videos, and they just get tens of views. So, DS doesn't want to be bothered with anything slower than level 20. And then other people are saying, that's nice. So, but anyway, I love doing it. And I like rewatching my own videos. So half those views are probably me listening to the game music in the background while I drive to work. So in any case, I'll probably have another one of those coming out this week. I've got a few more books should probably be here by the end of the week. And so we'll have another haul probably at some point this week. And then we got to get back to cutting down the collection because I'm just one short box shy of halfway through. So we still got a ways to go. So we're going to be getting rid of, if anybody wants to help me with that, hit me up on Instagram. We'll schedule a time and we can all get together and help do that. So other than that, that's all I got. I'll tell you all to read a comic and come back next week, of course, where we'll likely have another episode. I know we've skipped a few episodes here towards the end of the year, but I really don't feel too bad about it. So I hope you guys don't either. Every now and then I need a break. Who doesn't? So, but we'll catch you next time. BUB'S Comics for the No Faces Comic Chat. Remember to read a comic, and man, that's nasty. And don't apologize for the glare. Bye-bye.